We
Yep.
are now recording the August 21st, 2020 Small Business Accounting Advisors. Hello, everyone.
Happy
Hello.
Friday.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
So we're back in business and back online after a 2-week vacation.
I don't know if we'd really call that a vacation.
Well, I am, because my head is
Was.
still spinning. I have just been turned around in so many directions.
Yep.
And I'm still not up and running after being smacked by that lightning rod.
The lightning. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we had the repair guy here to fix the server, and we were talking about the COVID crazies, and it's weird. It's things like, you know how you have little routines, like if something's not going to go in the dishwasher, if it's in the right sink, it's dirty, and if it's in the left side, it's draining and it's clean. And now we're like, is this clean? I don't know. Wash it again, And then the washing machine, if the basket's on the floor, it's dirty, and the basket's on top, it's clean. And we go, is this clean? I don't know. Wash it again. It's like out of sorts with silly things.
Oh, absolutely out of sorts.
Blaming
And I
COVID,
think
everything.
people forgot how to drive here in Pennsylvania.
Did you
Everywhere.
hear about when I got in the car and I hadn't driven in a very long time, and I almost didn't up the garage door?
No.
Because I'm like, it's you do stuff out of habit,
Oh yeah.
and then you go, oh, what's the door?
Oh my goodness, good save. So yeah, today I guess we're going to talk about consequences of COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. Even the QuickBooks stuff goes in that category.
Yeah, well, even QuickBooks has got COVID. I'm sorry.
It has affected everybody and everything in strange ways. So Sarah, let's talk about the Family First and QuickBooks Desktop and Payroll. You figured it out.
Well, it reminds me of the whole PPP thing where they just kept in the middle of the night updating those FAQs. Like you never
Oh
knew.
yeah.
They would just show up unless somebody started tweeting about it. And so, they came out with the Family First Act, which is if you have, and there's, I didn't grab my files, but let's see if I can do it off memory. Like we are in Georgia, we don't have all the paid sick time and all that like they do in other states. But the feds came in, they said if they have COVID, they can get paid up to 80 hours of sick time. It's not just HABS code if they've been exposed and quarantined, okay? Then the second one is if the kids are home and or you have a relative who has COVID, then there's another one in a percentage. And then the third one is FMLA. So anyway, so we have a client who they've gone through all their PPP, and now they've got employees that are starting to get COVID. I mean, really, So, hey, we read this article, so we want you to, pay them like this. And we're like, so you go to the QuickBooks site to get the instructions. And then we started watching videos. Well, the videos from like April are completely different from videos. Hi, I'm a CPA, pro advisor, and they tell you how to do this, and you're going through the instructions, and they don't make any sense. So I think I figured it out, but basically they have you make sure you have the newest payroll update, and you have to set up very specific pay codes for the 3 different kinds of wages. And then you have to set up special codes for the credits, and then the instructions like switched. Like one said not to uncheck eligible for company Social Security. Then the next video would say, check it, right? It made no sense. Well, there's some quirks in the payroll codes. such as you set up the pay code and you say it's eligible for everything except Social Security company, but you can't uncheck the Medicare. I was like, well, I don't have to pay Medicare either. So it accrues Medicare. And then one of the latest instructions I had is when you pull the paycheck up and you're putting this in, and it's not a pay code, it's an addition code.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go down and manually put in that Medicare credit, which undoes the accrual. And then because it's not an hourly code, our simple retirements aren't accruing. I'm just like, I've never seen the biggest mess in my entire life. And then it actually does all the taxes correctly and the payables are correct. But when you go to do your liability check, it doesn't put those codes on the liability check. You have to manually put the codes on to take the credit. I'm just like, now I'm somebody who just studied and I really had to understand these codes and we had set it up the way we were instructed in the beginning. And then weeks later I came back and I'm rereading instructions going, oh no, I need more codes. And so I fixed some things. And so it's making sense to me, but how many customers are going to be in desktop and muck this up? Unfortunately, it happened after June 30th. So we'll find out on the September 30th quarterly, I guess.
Well, I have to say, Shannon, your cleanup is going to be super fun.
Oh, yeah. Well, you don't have any customers, right? You said you haven't had any.
But I do a lot of payroll cleanup. So when people screw it up, I come in and fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think anything dated after April 1st is going to double in price. At least. It has to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, one thing that's nice is the undoability of desktop.
Right.
Like, as long as we don't change the net paycheck, I can go in and tweak those pay codes. So that's been a godsend, and you can't do that with QBO. So.
Right. And you can always just, if you want to see how it's going to flow through on your 941, you can do a draft one.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a real good idea. Now, here's the
Probably.
thing. I may not have to take the credit. Like maybe it won't accrue the match and all that. And I could see, I'm nervous about taking the credit up front. I'm almost like, maybe I should wait to the end of the quarter and then take the credit. I don't know. Instead of taking it out of the 941 deposit. I don't know.
Yeah, because it's not a refundable credit.
You have to take it on you have to take it out of a deposit then. That's the only way to get it then, huh?
No. Yes and no.
You end up with a credit on the 941. Are you saying they won't send a check?
Right. Yeah, so you have to. So
to the next quarter, I bet.
I pulled up a sheet here. So yeah, the qualified sick leave and the qualified family leave, both are only at the 0.62 for the social, for one half of the Social Security. So it's the total wages plus half of the Social Security is all that you get the credit on. And then
what's the trick with the Medicare? Oh, it isn't the whole FICA? Sure it's not the whole FICA?
Well, I haven't studied this nearly as much as Matthew did.
Yeah, dig into it. But you know what? What a great idea that if the government's going to help pay with somebody actually out on COVID, that's actually, I know that you can't do PPP at the same time.
Right.
But we're all past PPP at this point, most of it.
Matthew?
Yeah. So FFCRA, Family First Coronavirus Response Act. It is the challenge that I had with it to begin with is the fact that it requires the employer to have the money to pay the wages to the employee to then try to get these, tax credits, rebates, everything else. Now, what a lot of the payroll companies have been trying to do, and QBO kind of made it nice this way, is they'll basically try to immediately reduce your tax liability on that pay period by the amount of the tax credits that you would be using for FFCRA. So that way, you still had to put the money, well, in a sense, you didn't put out as much money up front and wait to get it back because you would have just paid money into the taxes in a sense anyways.
Right.
So that helped quite a bit.
Same with desktop. I mean, that's the way it works.
Okay.
That's the way it shook out.
So then, like the adding the extra codes and such, I have not done desktop, and so I'm by no means even partially an expert on the desktop one.
Crazy.
The online one was not too difficult. You're right. There are 3 different different codes that you use, whether a person is directly infected with COVID, or if they're caring for another family member that had COVID, or really the big one I'm just amazed we're not hearing more about is if the school is closed down or childcare is closed down and you've got that continuation for, I'm going to say the wrong number of weeks. I thought it was an additional 10 weeks. But the last 2 are only at 2/3 of the regular rate of pay. The only time you get the full rate of pay is if you're the one actually impacted.
Yeah.
And it's only, the other caveat is 2 weeks or 80 hours. Well, what if you have somebody that's only, like for us, Mary, the childcare that she had was only 3 hours twice a week. Am I allowed to use 3 hours and add up to 80? Or am I only allowed to do 3 hours for 2 weeks and that's it, which means I got 12 hours max out of the 80, right? How does some of that stuff play out, which is kind of a bummer. But so there's other chaos ensuing around that. But at least this next time around, the new quarterly form should be at least figure it out. So we're not waiting to the last minute to try to get this stuff handled.
We did our quarterlies at the last second, didn't we?
Well, I did a lot of mine at the last minute too, because there was so many issues with getting the form.
And,
For
and
quarter
also
2.
everything changes even up through the last minute.
Mm-hmm.
And that form is complicated. Like I turned the thing into a calculator and you go through and how you figure out some of the language on it it's taking this first, reducing it by this, and the amount that's over is what goes on the form. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Linda, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, the client of mine that let all his people go out on unemployment, but didn't do PPP. He did get an EIDL. No, he did or didn't. I'm not sure which. He tried to get it through Wells Fargo. I think he ended up getting one through Bank of the West. But now we're all, the unemployment, the federal unemployment's been cut by $600 a week. So people who were getting $2,300 a week are now getting $900 a week unemployment, which is not enough. So now we're talking to his CPA about how can he pay them more money on unemployment without them losing their unemployment. And the CPA is saying, well, he could loan them that money. And then when now I'm wondering about this program with the kids because 2 of the families one has 2 kids and one has 3 kids. So they both need childcare. So, so I'm wondering if maybe that program would that pay them to be out?
So it's a good question, and it's something that I think people could try to utilize. But again, it is limited to 2 weeks or 80 hours, whichever comes first at 2/3 the regular rate. That's where, when we start talking.
Whichever comes first.
From my understanding, yeah. Because otherwise you could take the 80 hours and I could have used 6 hours per week, right? And then space that out would have been great, which is what, like, in a sense it should have been, but it's either or, right? So there really is.
These are like stopgap, aren't they? They're just stopgap.
I think they were actually more like an attempt to put a plug in a bicycle tire with a small plug that just doesn't quite block all the air coming out of it.
Right. I think they thought it would be over by now, probably, and it's not.
By any stretch of the means. Everything is different these days. Everything.
But, you know, the thing is, you know, that's not billable work. I don't know how many hours just trying, and I'm still nervous that it's not right, you know?
I'm so worried with the PPP, with all this stuff. Number one, I really hope that if they go round 2, that they do separate calculations. Please don't mess us all up and decide that they're going to make this one attached to this for blah, blah, blah. But more importantly, imagine the people that got the money first and they did the 8 weeks. Right. They brought all the people back. It specifically states that the date that you have to look at your full-time equivalent is the date in which your loan forgiveness application is submitted. Right. Well, if you can't submit it because the portals aren't even open.
You mean forgiveness? No.
Right.
No,
the first round.
Even if you I'm talking about, we're not talking about second because that's still theoretical.
The first one, it starts with when they're funded.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you pick the 8 weeks, then did you pick the date?
So it's either 8 week or 24 week.
All right.
The beautiful part of the 24 week portion of it is if you finish early,
right,
then you have to have the FTE count at what you need to have it at that date that you do your loan submission.
Good. But we're not ready to submit.
Can't.
Why not? What if you are though?
We're ready. I mean, once we hit 10.8 weeks, most people were ready.
Which is a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So now what's happened, if we're now 2 or 3 weeks past, business hasn't picked up. What if you were paying people literally?
People want to let people go now.
But how can you do that unless the portal's open to put your submission in?
Because we were reading. All right. Well, that's why we're waiting for clarification, because we need to be able to say, well, here's my application, but I ended it 2 weeks ago.
We need to demand there should be a date set in stone that all of the institutions have to have their portals open by. It has to be defined.
But even then they're telling you not to use the portal because we're still waiting for the IRS to come back and make their decision. So they're like, you've got 10 minutes to do it. Don't worry about it. So I'm thinking that the full-time equivalent it's got to be based on a date when you say I am done, whether it's submitted or not.
They may change that, yeah. It's scary. I'm just still afraid that this is going to turn into that trap.
You know, and I tell my clients, I'm like, the way I understand it today.
I'm moving to Canada. Canada's better.
Move to Canada.
I'm just going to retire and not do payroll anymore.
Let you know how it works out, making a loan to the employee to cover what the federal government's not giving them.
I don't know. That just smells too much like fraud to me.
Well,
I wouldn't advise
There's a law. You know the law.
No, you can loan money to people.
You can.
Oh, you're
give
thinking
money.
it's money and that is payroll, even though it's not payroll.
No, you know how if you were to give an employee $1,000, it's got to go on their W-2.
No.
That's right.
Huh? Not during a pandemic.
Well,
yeah.
Well, we were thinking that we would have it be in place of the federal unemployment, and it would be stated in the loan papers.
But
If you're talking about a loan, you can loan people money for any reason.
That's what I thought.
But who's going to pay it back then?
Are they going to pay it back?
Well, we're thinking about maybe he could forgive it.
Well,
and at the point at which he forgave it, then maybe it would have to be counted as payroll.
But not during a pandemic. Google it.
Well, we don't know.
Yeah,
but
you got to find it out.
This particular company is doing okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's little known laws that have crept up, and they during they used to say act of God. You can't say that anymore. During a
Crisis.
Natural
disaster.
Oh, if a disaster was declared.
A natural disaster that you can actually assist your employee tax-free.
So think about with the natural disasters that are happening at this time. what does the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan, has been around for some time. And you
Right.
actually had to claim if you'd already received one. So if you've been going through all of this stuff, and heaven forbid your business is impacted by a fire, hurricane, tornado, whatever, what do you do then?
You pick one? Pandemic, fire.
Lightning strike?
You spin the wheel.
Pick one from column A.
Wheel of
pick one from
Fortune.
column B.
What's my prize?
2 hurricanes at once.
Yeah.
Brandon, Brandon,
I'm not watching. Not watching. Bye, Tiffany.
Bye, Tiff. And so, Linda, you brought up a thing about tutors in California and 1099s versus.
Well, what I'm writing on Facebook, which is where I see it, I said, if the person has a business and they have more than one client that they tutor and get paid for, I said, now what they need to do is make sure they have a business license in the city where they have their home office.
Right. But I
If they're
thought
operating.
that they were even overriding that. Like
No.
writers, the people who are writers and they get 1099s and they write for all kinds of different periodicals and places, and they have lots of clients, they have a business license and everything, and the publishers are like,
Well, the publishers are doing it there. It's
well,
not
the
the
publishers don't want to
IRS.
hire them because of all this law stuff going on.
Yeah, eventually everybody's going to leave California.
Not Matthew. Matthew will be
It's-
the only one left there.
It's going to be a long time coming though.
He's already told me he's not coming to tornado places like Pennsylvania.
Well, I'm not either. The worst that happened is I'd go to Vegas and die in the heat. But and I'm semi-retired, so. But for me, it's okay. I don't have a problem with my 1099, because I have a number of different clients. I have about 10 different clients.
I don't know. It just seems so anti-business. I don't get it.
Well, it is very anti-business, but what the state of California looks at it that, we're not anti-business, we're pro-employee. We want
We're protecting the
employee to
individual.
be treated properly.
Right. So they're trying to protect the poor person who goes to get a job, and the employer says, "Hey, you're self-employed." That's
Right.
what-
And I was talking about that with somebody the other day, and I'm just like, you know what? If every time somebody was filled out a W-9, if the whole Social Security section was just gone and everybody had to have a business tax ID number,
Right.
do you know how many employees that would be told that they're self-employed would buck that because they're like, I don't have a business. I work for you. Right. I'm not an employer, so I don't need an employer identification number.
That would be so simple. Wouldn't it be simple?
Right? Wouldn't it?
Well, they got to start getting accountants in there to help them
That's right.
design all
Accountants
this stuff.
running the joint.
Well, instead of attorneys just muck things up.
Right.
All
I'm just
righty.
bummed
What
that I
other
have to go back
exciting
to.
things happened this week? I think.
There aren't any fires close to you, are there, Matthew?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so. The closest one is the Ranch Fire. It's kind of north of you.
There's one that was out by like Piru, but I haven't.
Oh, that's right, a little one.
It's plenty distance away, and I don't have any desire for any of them to be nearby. And anybody who is around them, I'm telling you, just don't stick around. Grab
Nope,
the
don't mess with
SBAA,
it.
Leave early. I was stupid one year and thought, I packed everything up and stuck around, and it's stayed with me ever since. So just pack up and leave.
Yeah.
Same thing with hurricanes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But did you have drive into the fire, Matthew?
No, it was during the Thomas fire here in Ventura a couple years back, and I remember when that fire came over and seeing it from a very far distance. A client of mine had called and asked if the fire was close by. Power goes out, so I call my mom and like, hey, I got a bad feeling about this one. I need you to keep an eye on the news. And within an hour and a half, he had come over and swept into the hills. And right, like with where I'm at, across, there's Main Street, which is just a basic road. The houses on the hill, so it was 3 blocks, probably main distance, were burning down. And,
Wow.
I'm fortunate. Nothing happened to me. It was just one of those experiences. Friends of mine lost their homes. Like, this whole town was, you guys get it. I mean, you guys back east have had so much worse, right? So I made the mistake of, everybody else was getting tired. I had my stuff and my dogs in the car, and I sat at the laundromat watching up towards the houses, because if it was coming down further, then everybody needed to know we had to get out. And I sat in the car watching it to see what would happen, and it's just something that stuck with me ever since. Don't do it.
Yeah.
We're going to change
Matthew?
the subject right
Okay.
now. We're going to go to Microsoft and inboxes. Sarah's going to tell us her onboarding. And before we do that, Matthew, I want to say that it was a great webinar. And yes, desktop time. You and Mariette and Linda were awesome. 3 powerhouses. And it was so much information so fast that I think that, you really need to watch the recording to catch all the good stuff that was in there.
Thank you. Can I also announce that apparently Seth acknowledged today that Teams won over Slack?
How
You're
much?
welcome. I asked.
By how much?
37 to 27, he said.
Oh, yeah.
Surprised that there was so few people that voted, because on the Friday webinar, there was
75 people.
75 people on it.
Yeah.
Left it open to vote all week, didn't he?
The
Yeah.
challenge is having to find where it was at. Like, I didn't even know for a couple days what
I
the
couldn't
link was.
find it.
Exactly. But we still overcame. So that's what
I
matters.
voted.
I voted once for me and once for my employee.
Oh, there you go. That was
Jamie,
one on
did
each
you
side.
vote?
I voted.
Okay.
Was that the employee you voted for?
No.
No, the
No.
one that actually gets
Either way.
paid. The one that gets paid.
Anyways.
So Sarah, inboxes.
Yeah,
On Microsoft
so
Teams.
we're on Microsoft. We've got the all the paid mailboxes, and then you can do shared mailboxes. So I discovered in trying to step in to take care of another employee was, I have smart sheets, I have share file, we have procedures to get documents from clients. But there's always that one that's usually the boss. Their employees will do it, you instruct them, but it's always that boss who goes, they just want to forward you an email. And so I do have clients on HubDoc. Okay, yeah, there's ways to do that. But, you get to the point where if they get their little electric bill and they just forward it. So what happens is mixed, how much email we get. I mean, all of us just get so much email. And so these emails are coming in, and buried in their emails is actually work. It's real work. So of course we've done the folder thing, and we can play with rules and whatever. But what I decided to do was, in covering for an employee, like say I said to one employee, I need you to cover for her this week, whether it's a vacation or sick or whatever. And the work's coming in the email. I have to expose that employee's email to another staff. I'm like, it's bad enough that the boss can, get in your email, but you don't want your colleagues. Okay. So I thought, okay. So, and then Matthew, when we were getting ready for that little Slack
Smackdown. Let's call it what it was.
Smackdown. Okay. He mentioned, so I was working on something. It was late at night, and he goes, and I was bitching about something. And he goes, well, when you're in a team, each channel has an email. I'm like, okay, So I flipped over to Microsoft, and we can do all these aliases and shared, boxes and stuff. So I said, okay, I do the initials we have 3 initials for every client, just about. inbox@asbinc.net. Okay. And then I thought, well, I'll just forward it to the team channel. And that way, all these files are just going to end up in the team. And then by way of Teams, they're ending up on SharePoint. Not quite where I want it to go, but okay. Well, if I just did that, the channel ends up just like all these emails, and it throws the attachments in another folder that it was like mail or something. I'm like, yeah, okay. But then, okay, so we could go into that directory or that, files, and then move them to where we want to. We have to rename them because there's always that client that, refuses to use your naming convention. But anyway. So then Mark's like, or it was either Mark or Matthew, said, wait a minute. Instead of Zapier or one of the others, Microsoft comes with, we were calling it Microsoft Flow. That's probably the way you hear it. Now it's Power Automate. Everything's going to have power on the front. I'm like, okay. So we blew a Saturday playing with Power Automate. I said, okay. So I give the client their initials inbox at, our domain, and just forward their email stuff there. I don't care. And then so the rule is like, and at first it seemed really simple. So it's like, if this email gets an email, then I wanted a permanent copy of the email. I want the email to become a PDF and then go land over, wherever. And then I wanted the attachment. And so you have to set up little rules like, well, what are you going to name that file? And I'm like, well, how about the subject and the date? And then that seemed simple enough. And so, but this was late Saturday night, and it kept saying that it was at some weird time on Sunday. It's like Sunday the 16th. And I'm like,
using UTC.
UTC. UTC 00000. Well, we're East Coast. What's that, -5 hours or something? So then I was like, okay, and it just got crazier. So you had to convert the time before making the, So anyway, of course, we're geeks. So it was fun. And so now and then it gets down to a condition. If it has an attachment, do this and send the attachment over to the folder where my staff are ready to work, And so, it took us a while to figure it out.
And it'll handle multiple attachments too.
Oh, that was the other thing. We thought we had it. So you got to test this stuff. And so, you know how a client will send you documents and they all say scan one? Scan1.pdf. Scan1.pdf.
Yes.
That's because that's what their scanner names them. So, well, oh my goodness. If they sent a second email, it overwrote that. I'm like, okay, so now how do we tell it that if it finds a file with the same name in the inbox to not overwrite it and make a new one? Well, we could only do that.
Well, there was a whole involved process we could go through by looking at the names and searching through it and doing all that
it got
stuff.
crazy.
It was very late Saturday night, didn't feel like doing that.
But we figured out that if you, instead of going straight to SharePoint, if you land in a OneDrive first, you get more options, wasn't it?
Well, it's SharePoint. It's in a SharePoint library. If you're just
no, it was a blue icon, not a purple.
If you just create the file, it will overwrite anything that's there. So we picked a folder to create the file in.
That's
and
what
then
I mean.
there's a move. No, that's all SharePoint. So because it's Teams. So it's creating the file in a directory, and then the default behavior when you go and move a file, if there's another file,
it was the move function.
Name,
the move function gave us the ability to say, if it finds another file, what do you want to do? That's what it was.
So it just just puts a one,
puts a one or
whatever, or 1 or 2 or whatever at the end, and gets rid of that.
So you put it here and this all happens in a second. So it puts the file here, and in a split second moves it, does this thing and moves it.
So,
And then you had to put in another step to go back and delete.
well, that had to do with the body of the email. It had nothing to do with the attachments. That's
Deleting?
No, that's creating the PDF from the body of the email.
And then you deleted something.
That had nothing to do with the attachments.
No. Oh, when I wanted to save, I want to save a copy of the email in our permanent records.
Because in Flow, there's certain places that have certain like OneDrive and SharePoint, and that they have different capabilities for the Flow elements.
Right.
And the convert to PDF option is in OneDrive, so you have to go through a process.
But it was fun. It was like, oh, go left. Oh, that didn't work. Go right. Okay. So it took a long time. So and I'm glad it's done, because now I can clone that to different mailboxes and everything. So
Can I scroll you real quick for the weekend?
Oh no.
Uh-oh.
Put a link in chat for Mail Clerk. Take a look at that bad boy.
For what?
Mail Clerk?
Mail Clerk.
A mail clerk.
It's
You want us to get out of Microsoft? You go
no.
to
It's a integration with Microsoft Teams that is supposed to do what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. I get a little concerned about these integrations, because a lot of them ask for a lot of rights to be able to do what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So now you've got this application out here. Who knows what
Clark is stealing. Good point. Clark could be stealing a lot of stuff out of the mail.
They do. So the point is, now in our emergency plan, or if somebody's on a vacation or whatever, now all the work is going into a shared email instead of the individual's employee. So I distributed it to a couple clients, and then of course they came back and said, does that mean we don't use, Susie at whatever? And I was like, well, I'm going to talk to all my staff and say, it's still appropriate, I guess, if you're emailing with your bookkeeper, we try not to have too much in email, but sometimes you just need to email and have a conversation. So, but if it's something that needs to go into the shared email, then we would stay with the inbox. So I've been setting them up.
My experience with that, when I read the MSP, they need one email, and that is the one they will use.
Yeah, that's probably a real good idea. Like, forget the, Sarah at ASB. This is your email for you. Yeah,
Right.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I had.
Don't give them a
the
choice.
Connect-
Don't give them a choice. Yeah.
Yeah, I had the ConnectWise program, and it really worked really well in terms of stripping the emails out and putting them in a single channel where you could, literally just go, what has been going on with this one? Because, honestly, you just really never know when you have to jump in. You just never know. And, if it's something in flight on that day and, they actually have to talk to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
pick up the phone.
What's
They
that?
still work.
What's that?
I know.
And we've done all kinds of cool stuff with Microsoft. I got the Microsoft phone system.
I'm
So
looking at
now-
that.
Nice.
Karen hasn't seen the new phone yet. It's really cool. So, the days of in the old days we looked up on a Rolodex, but looking up in my contacts and getting a phone number and then turn around to dial the phone, it's all integrated. So that's pretty cool. So
Nice.
I did learn though, I hate learning curve. If I think organization I was in was Matthews, and my phone didn't ring because
No, the
something didn't ring.
Teams didn't ring on your computer.
Oh, the computer didn't ring. The phone did.
The phone would
Yeah.
ring.
This
because
rang,
it's
my
logged
computer
in
didn't.
as you.
That's what it was.
You were in as a guest in some other organization, so it didn't ring
But
Yeah,
unless
that's
my
the one thing
cell
that I
phone was
don't
sitting
like
here, or I get one of those fancy new phone.
That's one thing I don't like about Teams is their cross-organizational notification is not as good as it could be.
No.
That's one area that Seth really did kind of wow me was the having the two different organizations that you could bring a comment onto both. I mean, that was pretty cool. That was really, really cool. I wish we
I
had
know it seemed
more-
like he actually just did a fast path to the other organization.
Mhm.
Right?
I don't know.
Was I wrong? I mean, the way I saw it, he just like did a shortcut to get to the other organization.
Oh no. So he sent a message, and he sent a message to a channel that was in part of like 97 Up group, and then also in another Teams versus Slack group. But
Two
the
at one
one
time?
message went to two at the same time.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which I mean, I don't know that you really need to do that, but it is cool.
Alrighty, we
Share
are
inbox. Hmm.
about out of time. I want to say happy birthday to Ernest first.
Happy
before we
birthday,
leave.
Happy birthday!
I heard you'll get my cane now.
Hey, you're
Exact
finally
bingo
catching
card.
up to me. Or us.
59.
Yeah. I turned 59 first, then Mark, and then Ernest.
Nice. Congratulations. Happy birthday.
8.
Doing anything fun?
I did 18 holes already today.
Oh,
Nice.
cool.
Nice. Nice. Alrighty, well, we are going to end for this week. We'll see you all same time, same place next week. Bye.